The shield is becoming a target. On December 22nd, which was Monday, USCIS issued a new policy that fundamentally changes the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA. Okay, they are citing a 360% increase in filing to justify what they call a rigorous vetting process. But in reality, they're making it harder now than ever to prove you were ever abused. For the first time in years, the government is loosening the rules on prohibited sources, meaning the words of your abuser could be used to deny your case. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the emotional and legal realities of the VAWA lockdown. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Voices with Anisa Qalbi, immigration side of the podcast. So today's December 23rd, and we're reporting something that happened on Monday. Today's Tuesday. So we have to talk about something that's breaking my heart. For decades, the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, okay, was a beacon of hope. Okay, it was a promise from the US government that your immigration status could not be used as a weapon to keep you in an abusive home. But yesterday, USCIS issued a policy alert PA 202533. They're calling it restoring integrity. They claim that the VAWA filing was increased by 360% since 2020, and that T visas for trafficking, okay, have surged over 1,000%. They're using these statistics to paint a picture of a system overrun by fraud. But what they aren't telling you is the human cost of restoring integrity when the survivors are already living in fear. And the most chilling part of this update involves Section 1367 confidentiality. Traditionally, USCIS was strictly prohibited from making an adverse determination based solely on information provided by an abuser. Why? Because abusers are master manipulators, narcissists, right? They call ICE. They make false police reports. They do anything to keep control. So the new guidance now clarifies how officers can use tips and prohibited resources or sources to start fraud investigations. If your abuser calls USCIS tip line, that information can now be a spark that leads to a deep dive investigation of your moral character or your merit validity. They have effectively given the abuser a seat at the table in your immigration case. This is a betrayal of the very foundation of VAWA, okay? So there are two technical hurdles you need to know about. First, the update clarifies that you must prove you resided with the abuser during the qualifying relationship using, primary address in the past. If you fled an apartment because your life was in danger and your name wasn't on the lease, you could use affidavits. Now they're demanding primary evidence, leases, utility bills, or bank statements in both names. Think about how difficult that is for a woman or even a man, but mainly for women, right? Because it's always for women. Women whose husband hides the mails or refuses to let her have a bank account. Second, they're tightening the step relationship rules. If your relationship with the abuser's child or parent was the basis of your claim, you now have to provide ongoing evidence that the relationship continues after the filing. They are making the administrative burden so hard that they will, fail simply because they don't have the paper trails of their trauma. Can you imagine? Now we have the emotional side of this. A recent report titled Fear and Silence found that 76% of advocates say survivors are now terrified to even call the police. Why? Because in 2025, the police report isn't just a step towards U visa. It's a potential beacon for ICE. We're hearing stories of women who have been beaten and chose to go to church or a friend's house rather than a hospital because they fear the hospital will report their status. So 50% of advocates have worked with survivors who chose to drop their cases entirely this year. 50%, guys, right? They would rather live in an abusive house than be separated from their children and sent home to a country where they have no one. So the message from the government is very clear to me. Either stay with your abuser or risk deportation machine. And then finally, USCIS is now instructed to weigh good moral character with extreme scrutiny. If you have a single unlawful entry from 10 years ago, or if you worked under the table, to feed your kids while your abuser withheld money, guys, USCIS can now use those negative factors to deny your VAWA claim, okay, via VAWA claim. So in the past, these programs recognize the abuse victims often have messy stories, okay, for the lack of better words, because of the abuse. Now the administration is treating those survival tactics as fraud. They're looking for the perfect victim. And in the real world, the perfect victim doesn't exist. We must remember, like, when a VAWA is granted, it works. Studies show that when survivors get their work permits, the labor force participation increases by 300%. They go from being dependent on an abuser to being homeowners, teachers, business owners. They collectively contribute to the United States economy, the workforce, okay? So their children's health improves, the self-esteem grows, they become the backbone of our community. So this is very upsetting. It's very heartbreaking. If you are in a situation of abuse, there's still organizations like the NIWAP and the ILRC, okay? Do the best that you can to document everything. If you have access to a mobile device, try to take pictures. Keep your evidence safe from the abuser. Give it to a trusted person. And most importantly, know that your life is worth more than a policy manual update. Okay, please stay safe, my sisters, women out there. Stay strong, and I will see you on the next update. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.